A heat wave is coming once again to the Great Lakes region, this time bringing heat indexes of around 100 degrees in some spots. In this video, we're going to talk about where that heat is coming from and what it means for our chances of thunderstorms. Hello everybody, the time is 1:02 p.m. and it is July 24th. Welcome to another update from Great Lakes Weather. Hopefully everybody's doing well today. We are going to get right to it because we've got quite a bit going on with regards to the heat wave that is coming over the next couple of days. And we're going to have quite a bit of ground to cover, especially since the SPC has put out a chance for severe thunderstorms that could actually amount to some pretty substantial severe weather across the Great Lakes region on Wednesday. So we're going to get right to it. Let's begin by talking about what is coming up next, this upcoming heat wave that you've probably heard quite a bit about from local news media outlets and everywhere else. So here we have what is currently ongoing across the United States. Okay, so you can see, again, I've been talking about it for the past few videos, the southwestern ridge that's been kind of settling over the southwestern United States, and that has allowed just kind of a circulating of air that is just warming up and continuing to warm up, and that's why you have so much heat in this portion of the United States. Well, watch what happens with the 500 millbar height anomaly. Keep in mind that we're looking at the anomalies in pressure in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Again, you have your ridges, which are associated with lower pressure at the ground, and rising air, which it's warmer air because warm air is going to rise. Okay, so you have higher pressure aloft, and you have lower pressure at the surface where these troughs are showing up. So what is going on in the atmosphere? Well, you will see that this ridge begins to build a little bit and begin to shift farther to the north and east. So if you look here, you can see that it does tend to get a little bit more profound over the Great Lakes region Thursday into Friday. Okay, you can kind of see that the ridge kind of just settles over the United States, and that air mass is still down here, but it looks like the surge of the heat is really going to make its way up into the Great Lakes region on Thursday into Friday, and that's going to bring our heat indexes way up and our temperatures way up as well. So you can see that deepening ridge that is going to be moving into this part of the Great Lakes region, and looks like across much of the United States could see really warm air temperatures. In fact, I looked at a map that looks like all but a couple of the states are going to be receiving 90-degree temperatures, unless you're in Alaska, but all other places, we're really going to see some hot temperatures over the next couple of days associated with this air mass. So you see that it kind of settles over the United States for quite a long period of time until we get to the end of the month. And I talked about this in my previous video, kind of the long range was showing a heat wave. But you do see you kind of just got that ridge kind of just being stubborn. You still got it in the southwest, but it really is a lot stronger across portions of the western United States still. And then you start to see some changes as we get into the beginning of August. Now, these I'm going to want to watch carefully in the long range for the possibility of severe weather as well. But you can see that in the short term, definitely got a really stubborn ridge that's going to be settling over this region. Let me make sure I have the latest model. A stubborn ridge settling over this region for at least 3 or 4 days that could bring really hot temperatures across the Great Lakes region. So let's take a look at exactly what the temperatures are going to be. So here's the nationwide temperatures. Again, this is the actual air temperature, okay, not what it feels like. This is the real air temperature, okay? So you can see, again, today, not really getting super warm in the 80s, just like usual. But as you'll notice a progression of the temperatures and how they rise as we get into Tuesday. Temperatures are getting close to 90 in some spots across western Indiana on Tuesday. And then as we go forward, you can see that there's a very profound surge of hot air going throughout the Plains region. What the expectation is that this hot air will begin to surge to the east as well. So watch as we get into Thursday. Wednesday night, we have the potential of seeing some severe weather associated with a warm front lifting off to the northeast. And then what you'll see is that hot air begins to go into much of the Great Lakes region, including Ohio in the upper 80s. You have a surge of 90s and maybe even close to 100 across northern Indiana, southern Michigan, according to the GFS here. But you can see that the hot air still stays much farther off to the west. Thankfully, we have the lake to kind of keep things a little bit cooler across our area. But you can see that the air tends to surge farther to the east as we get into Friday. We get some really hot temperatures, air temperatures, across northwestern Indiana. The GFS is depicting temperatures in the hundreds for air temperature. Now, I think that's a little bit excessive, but I think it's going to be more along the lines of maybe upper 90s in some spots, but it will feel like the hundreds, and it will feel pretty hot across much of the Great Lakes region. So definitely going to be expecting that, and then associated thunderstorms with this upcoming surge of heat and humidity, not to even mention the high dew points that we're going to see. But if you look at when we reach that point where we have that heat wave starting to build in, here's Thursday. We have dew points in the 60s. That's when we're expecting some stronger storms Wednesday night. And then as we get into Thursday, you can see that we get a nice plume of really high dew points across Indiana and Ohio that will make the air feel really sticky. And that stickiness is really what doesn't enable you to sweat as much, enable you to cool off. And that is what's going to contribute to the more painful and so to speak, amounts of heat we'll be dealing with. The feels like readings that are currently being depicted by the models show exactly how hot it really could feel out there as we get into Thursday. Here's Thursday afternoon. Feels like around 100 in some spots across Michigan and Indiana. And then as we get into Friday, you can see that the heat really does build up across western Indiana and then also parts of southern Michigan as well. And then we start to see a relief on Saturday with that warmer air mass receding farther to the south. Still parts of southern Indiana, southern Ohio will be dealing with temperatures in the 90s. So that's what's currently being depicted. Here is kind of a freeze frame of one of the projected heat indexes Friday afternoon. And you can see that the heat index is projected around low hundreds and really kind of sticking in low hundreds around much of the Great Lakes region during that time frame during the day. So we're dealing with some hot air over the next couple of days. Just keep that in mind. But before we get to that, we will start to see a buildup of heat over the next couple of days. But Wednesday, we are going to be dealing with an oncoming severe weather threat. This is the severe weather threat for today. Just got a slight risk put out for southwestern Ohio for damaging winds. Now, what we'll be dealing with is this day 3 convective outlook for Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday, there's a slight risk for severe thunderstorms across southern Michigan, most of Indiana, and northwestern Ohio. And you can see the marginal risk kind of spreads out around there as well. Now, this threat could be a little bit more substantial given the fact that there's going to be a lot of instability, high dew points, high temperatures, and not only that, we could possibly see some different directional and speed shear associated with this setup as well. And that's what we're going to look at today as we get closer to the actual event. So you can see they're kind of hinting at that in their discussion about this setup. So you can see much of the Great Lakes region is included in this hazard zone. I will be chasing this, already planning on chasing this storm setup. But what are we expecting for this? Okay, this is the Euro model, first of all. So kind of showing what we're going to be dealing with at about 1 p.m. on Wednesday. That's hour 60. I'm going to freeze frame it right there real quick. Now you can see, really doesn't look like too much when you look at the Euro model. Again, the Euro model is not really showing the more substantial setup that some of the other models are showing. But it does show there is going to be instability in the atmosphere. There is going to be directional and speed shear. You can see that right here. And then there is a little bit of a curvature in the hodograph according to Euro. Now let me show you some of the other models just to give you an idea of where this could turn to. Kind of looking at the better and worst case scenarios here. But you can still see that directional speed shear. You got an increase in storm relative velocity in the afternoon. Marginal tornado potential starts to really show itself across this area. And you can see that, yeah, there's something that's going to be potentially firing in this setup here. Now, let's look at the winds that are associated with this. Now you can see the mid-level winds are really focused around northern Indiana, northwestern Ohio. This region right here is going to be more likely to see those more substantial storm setups wherever that mid-level flow kind of establishes itself in the atmosphere. And you can kind of see that at the 500 millibar level, there is going to be a little bit of support in the upper levels as well. Not too much support, but there's going to be some support. The stronger support looks to be in the mid layer, where you have those strong winds that are sort of firing across northern Indiana during the afternoon. You can see that change in the hodograph as well associated with the setup. You can see storm velocity values of 100 to 300 in some spots. Now, compare this to the NAM, you get a little bit of a different scenario. All right, so let's look at the NAM real quick for Wednesday. Progressing it forward, you can see it doesn't really look like too much on the NAM, but if you get a sounding out ahead of what is being depicted on the NAM, tornado potential, Cape values of around 3,000, storm relative velocity around close to 200. Still the directional speed shift present that was shown on the Euro as well. And as we get later on into the afternoon, you can still see that tornado potential continues as we get into northern Ohio and eastern Michigan at around 3 p.m. Now this NAM model depicts it as being much later than the high resolution model that has just been released. So what is currently being shown by the high resolution model is actually a pretty strong derecho-like setup across eastern Michigan. I do anticipate that this will probably fine-tune itself a lot more as we get to the day, and I think it's really going to focus back down farther in this region. But again, keep in mind these models are fluid and they do change quite actively, but it does show a very strong signal of stronger thunderstorms across eastern Michigan around 8 p.m. on Wednesday, and you get a sounding ahead of these, which is a rather impressive sounding. PDS tornado sounding, Cape values of 2100, and you've got a little elevated cloud bases, but you do have very strong directional and speed shear. Storm melticity values that are a little bit off the charts, which is really something that tells me NAM model's going a little bit too wild in this one. Okay, I think it's going to narrow down, and I think it's going to be more located down farther to the southwest, and I don't think this setup's really going to be what the expectation is for this storm scenario, because you can see the other models are agreeing, nah, it's going to be farther to the west. So just keep that in mind. I don't think the NAM 3K is really making the right move here on this, but still, something to just keep watch of. There's going to be some potential for severe weather across much of the Great Lakes region, Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. As more high-resolution models come in, I'll probably post a few other updates, but this is all we got right now. And as we get closer to the actual event, we'll make the determination, or the determination will be made as to how this is going to unfold across this area. But I will be chasing this scenario no matter where it places me. It's probably going to be northern Indiana, but we'll see how models change coming over the next couple of days. But that's pretty much the update. Heat wave on the way, severe thunderstorms on the way. Make sure to subscribe, stay updated. We'll be out chasing again on Wednesday, making sure we're getting on this line of storms, whether it's derecho, whether it's tornadoes. We'll see exactly how things unfold for this day. But just make sure to stay updated, however that may be. And thanks for watching, and I will see you all a little bit later. Stay cool.